The problems are well known. It's now time for a course correction. How do you ensure that what is being discussed there actually translates, for example, into water into the taps of the people who are still without?
No, thanks, Bongi. I thought you were going to relieve me early with Natasha when she's going home now.
Not a chance, not a chance. We still want you to stay with us.
On a serious note, one of the things that is heartening and very pleasing is that the question of the imminent crisis that requires an immediate response, it has received the highest authority in terms of attention, which is the president. Now that the president is leading the charge, that we must be able to work together, civil society, all water users, NGOs, including experts, and municipalities themselves. That is one of our biggest challenges, that we have not been having that kind of a leadership because there are too many role players in that issue of the water sector. Now that the president has spoken, there are too many things that we've done diagnosis. There is no time to talk too much. South African citizens, they need water now that is safe to drink. They need to have decent sanitation and hygiene conditions. We are agreeing that there is going to be a 5-point plan that will have short-term intervention, medium-term intervention, and long-term. At the center of this 5-point plan is the delivery model. The current delivery model of municipalities providing water and sanitation, it has actually worked for 30 years, but they have reached a stage that they can't take us to the next level. We are saying to them, without taking over, let's appoint issues of water utilities, ring-fence the water function. They can use another municipality that has capacity. They can use a water board. They can even use private sector and concession just to get the water infrastructure being managed well. We are going to help them to actually make that decision. We are going to use the sections in the law in terms of the Constitution and the Water Services Act. While they are building their own capacity, in the meantime, someone must run the function. Secondly, we are going to have to look at how do we finance infrastructure. One of the biggest problems about financing of infrastructure in South Africa, the traditional funding is there. We give a lot of grants. They are being actually abused. Some of them, they're actually not spent. And then they also sell water to citizens. All that money, it must be ring-fenced. When it is ring-fenced, the biggest portion of that money must be used to fix the infrastructure so that the reliability can be there. But then they must also pay those who they owe, especially water boards. But all those people who are owing them, who are owing municipalities, must pay for services. Then there's money we're getting from private sector called blended finance, looking at private sector funding. We're also looking at money called green bonds and blue bonds. That's the funding mechanism. But debt management must be an issue to be addressed, including correct billing system.
So,
the main...
Pardon me,
yes?
How are you going to do this? And I ask this at a practical level because, as you say, grants are being abused. We're seeing mismanagement, what the president is also speaking about as well and touching on earlier on to say that you also need to do this. And then you do have Parliament saying that when you are then dealing with the issues around water, you can't build more dams. You now need to make sure that the infrastructure is being maintained. So when you then look at this, a lot of people are pointing fingers at the municipalities. You are also saying you're going to help them. So how do you do this at a practical level? Are you going to have people there? Or what are you going to do to change what we're seeing at municipal level?
Well, one of the things you have to help them in terms of support, in terms of the Constitution. We are actually giving them grants, but we're also actually giving them technical capacity around planning. Some of them, they can't even produce a business plan, so they can request the money. We're also making our water boards, including all our agencies, to be at the disposal of these municipalities so that they can sort the question of planning, the question of implementation. We have also mobilized private sector, like we're actually doing with Mpumalanga. There's the Slulumanzi, there's Caesar Water in eThekwini. There are many of these agencies that are there, including mines. They are going to help them. Their issue is to open up, take council resolutions, enter into proper contracts to be able to do that. But in an instance, Bongi, where they don't want to agree, we are going to intervene.
Okay.
The law makes a provision in terms of the Constitution, Section 139 and Section 63. We are not going to say, no, it's not our responsibility. We are going to wait. Citizens, they deserve better. And therefore, the intervention by Proctor, because the minister was here, and National Treasurer, that's why we intervene in Fuleni. Echeguini, they agreed that we must work together. In Johannesburg, they agree. Those are some of the mechanisms. But lastly, we must have accountability framework.
Yes.
The president wants us to report in cabinet, but there must be accountability framework in parliament. Communities must be reported to, and yourselves, because we are playing an important role. When this plan with clear time frames and the timelines and the targets has been put in place, you will have to hold us accountable.
Should someone, though, who cannot draw a business plan to be asking for money as far as water provision is concerned, be on the job to begin with, to be doing that particular function, if they cannot do something as simple as that?
You see, Bongi, one of the biggest problems we have, there are mistakes that have been made. There are people who are working in the technical division in municipalities. They are not supposed to be there. For some of them, they've been there for 40 years. What we are saying, we must do a professionalization of the sector, do a skills audit, train them. But there are these operators that are good, but they don't have certificates. We must agree that over a period of 3 years, working with the cities and universities, we will recognize issues of prior learning. But nobody going forward, where you need to have an engineer that is registered, we are having a technician. Where you are supposed to actually put a business plan, do the designs, you can't do them. Some of these people in these municipalities must make the big decision to say, where do you place them? Remember, there are labor relations laws in our country. It's easy to hire a wrong person, but it takes time to fire a wrong person. You have to follow processes. In the meantime, they are sorting their problems of wrong people, wrong capacity. We say, let's use other organizations to help them to actually solve their water issues while they're addressing their governance, capacity issues and finance issues.
So how then do you also ensure that the issue of criminality is dealt with once and for all? Because last year we saw this propping up and again it's here. You listened to the portfolio chair there saying that they damage infrastructure. These are the mafias, he alleges. They damage infrastructure so that they can also deliver water through tankering systems. And then saying that also it becomes an issue where you then have certain officials, according to Viswin Reddy, who's also part of that committee. He claims that there are certain officials who are working with some of these mafias. How do you begin then to address that? Because this issue is coming up again.
There are two aspects around issues of criminality. One aspect is prevention. When it comes to prevention, what do you do? To avoid people who are actually having the tendering business interfering with infrastructure so that they can continue to have that, one of the decisions we need to do is to agree that let's stop issues of outsourcing, let's insource. And those tankers must be a temporary match, because that's what we need to do. But the other issue, what you do, you use technology, where you can use the eyes in the skies and artificial intelligence. You can be able to see your infrastructure live when there's an issue of vandalism or intervention. Then you can deploy. But then there's a reaction side. In the reaction side, Minister Pemima Jodina have made with the SIU, who are agreeing now that we are setting up water and sanitation anti-corruption forum, where all of us, in terms of ensuring that the 10% people that are there who are facilitating invoices, the 30% people that are there doing all these other issues, including the cases that the president has signed proclamation, SIU in the department, in the portal boards and municipalities are implemented. But more importantly, we must have civic education around integrity management, creating a system that are waterproof, including issues of lifestyle audits, where some people, they move from rags to riches without any explanation. How do you move from the extreme poorest to the most affluent?
So I always do this to you, right? I'm going to take some of our viewer comments tonight because we are asking some of our viewers as to what do they believe is actually, the priority that is needed as far as fixing the water problems in South Africa are concerned. So let's take a look at some of what they think. Mpo, Tabelaka Studio. Hello, Mpo. Remember that most of the citizens get water from municipalities, and if there's still those people in municipalities who see an opportunity in water tankers projects, then South African water is in crisis, will never end today, unfortunately so. That's all aged infrastructure. That's where we're supposed to start with timelines, SP, the outcome of the Indaba expertise personnel to curb the shortage of water. It is paramount and turnaround strategy of fixing leakages. Good evening. ZB, Realitaba Batubareshu. Hi ZB, I said this last week that water crisis in Zibediela in Mahlobo under the Limpele Nkumbi will not come to an end. Some people in Zibediela are still drinking water with animals while we are surrounded by Oliphant River and Limpele Nkumbi northern water. All right, those are some of your comments tonight. Of course, the issue of Zibediela, we've dealt with it, but there's another issue that is raised by Bethwell, and this is the issue of the leaks. And that's where the water is still being lost and still a huge concern. They're even coming out from the conversations you were having today. How do you begin to ensure that this is also dealt with as far as municipalities are concerned, including the leaks that we can see above ground, as well as the ones that we cannot see underground?
I wish I could steal Bethwell. He has managed to get the point right. You know, Sisbom, sometimes we speak in tongues. You know, the question of issues of water leaks. South Africans were losing about 48% of our water because one is unmetered or meters. There are faulty issues, illegal connections. There are many, many other issues. The problem we are dealing with is issues of infrastructure management. One of the biggest decisions we must make, you can't fix the leak when you don't know where it comes from. Firstly, our municipalities are being directed to use technology like earth sensing so that they can know where the assets are. Some of our people and industries, they've built over these assets. The second issue, then you have a map, you know their condition. After we have known the condition, you can only stop the leak by actually replacing all old pipes. That's the first thing you do. Because if you are going to think you are going to do patchwork, you are not going to do it. After we have replaced all the old pipes, then you do something we call it pressure management. You introduce leak detectors, restrictors, pressure reducing valves, and then from there you manage these other issues. That's the way you can be able to do. Then the faulty meters are being removed. Then the water gets into people's homes. When it gets into people's homes, you give them the correct bill, they are going to pay you. Because if the water goes on the ground, therefore the municipality still has to pay the water of the treated water that comes from the water boards. Therefore, Bethwell is correct. Let's look at leak detection is about where is the asset, the condition, and so forth. But when there's an issue of a water leak, there's a burst pipe, like you normally see in Johannesburg. They must have the capacity to respond on time, because you cannot have a pipe leaking for 48 hours, 72 hours. But for them to respond, these officials, some of them, they are so good, but they are not given tools of trade. There is no bucket to run around. There is also these issues of illegal connections. You know, there are too many people who used to get what? There is an informal settlement. They decided to connect into the pipe. When we are removing illegal connection, people are saying, no, but you are wrong, is the right, they must have what? We do have a right to water, but their right is not more important than these other people that they are denying. Illegal connections must also be in a position to fall. But we can say this thing must be done. These municipalities, they don't have all the money. Some of the grants we give, we must relax the conditions. That certain percentage must be used for infrastructure replacement, renewal, and upgrade. But then private sector must be allowed to come in around the replacement of infrastructure over a period of time. They are able to collect the rates there in terms of the revenue, give a municipality a particular portion over a particular period. They must hand over the infrastructure back to municipality. That's the implementation model and the funding model, because if you don't look at issues of funding, and the technical issues of operation and the stakeholder mobilization, because citizens must also change their behavior. They can't do illegal connections. They cannot use too much water. They cannot be spraying their gardens. The behavior of citizens will be one of the success factors.
All right, now I can let you go. As you were saying there, that you'd like an early...
I must go and see the commission that they produce a plan before we get fired, because President says he wants a concrete plan, time frames and action and responsibility. And you must come back here and share those time frames with us. So now I can let you go. Then go work on the time frames and bring them back here. We want to hear about them. But thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. That was the Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation, David Mahlobo. On that note...